their paper closed because of the editor had written an editorial being critical of the White House, and they closed.
It might be the biggest epidemic we have in this country.
We cannot underestimate the power and importance of diversity.
You're only as good as your weakest link perspective.
No, I'm going to prove you wrong.
You're gonna be called all kinds of stuff.
So be brave and come to the table.
We gotta worry about that. Y'all, I'm over here like, Lydia, you're fine.
Okay, let's get started.
No worries.
Excited to have you all here. This is going to be great. I hate stopping that. Like that's the best part. We could almost do that the whole time, right? So, but you didn't come here just to do that because you can do that, anywhere. But it's great to have everybody here. It's like so much energy around this program. Can't be more thrilled to do our round 2 of the leadership program here, which we kicked off this fall. My name is Dr. David Thomason. And I'm the executive director. I run the Kozmetsky Center, and we focus on civic engagement, democracy. We have this brand new building. All of you been in here. I won't go through that spiel again, but just so y'all know that this is a brand new space for us. We opened it in September. We had a really great turnout for all of our events. We have one, before we get to this, November 4th, which is at the Alamo Draft House on Slaughter. It's free to attend. For students, it's $5 for all of us, but you get $20 worth of food. So we're giving you $20 worth of food to come. So I really want y'all to come. We're actually, the documentary is on a small town newspaper in the Panhandle. I grew up in the Panhandle, I grew up in Canyon, and it's a small town paper in Canadian that their paper closed because of the editor who'd owned the paper for 120 years, her family, had written an editorial being critical of the White House, and they closed. So she's actually, I just found out yesterday, I talked to the director of the documentary yesterday, and the woman that owned the paper, she's gonna be there at the event on November. Wow. So, and we'll have some reporters from the Texas Tribune. The Texas Tribune actually came in last week and wants to sponsor it, so they're real excited about it. We'll have some of the editors from the Texas Tribune, the newspaper from Fredericksburg will also be there. And it's just going to be great. So the documentary, Q&A, free food. What else can I say?
Canadian was good at football.
They're very good at football.
They played my school. They were
really?
at school too.
Oh, really?
Really?
I know a lot about it.
Yeah. That's right.
Small world.
So I want to introduce the panel. So I'll just go down the line. So Quan Cosby is here. Quan, his background is athletics. He had a very long career in football, but also a career in baseball. Also a career in baseball, and is in the UT Hall of Honor.
Yes, sir.
And for his performance and work at UT for the football team in the early mid 2000s. Some great teams, incredible teams, but also played minor league baseball and is in the Texas High School Sports Hall of Fame. So that's pretty impressive stuff. But also, it doesn't stop there because life goes on, right? And he's currently working for Marsh McLennan.
Yes, sir.
And as a risk liability assessment manager. And I'm curious about that, and I want to talk to you a little bit about. A friend of mine has a liability insurance. His name's Alex Fairley. He owns a sports liability company in Amarillo. I'm kind of curious about whether you work with him. Immediately to Quan's side is Vanessa Maldonado. Vanessa is with the American Cancer Society. She's the executive director of the South Texas region. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And has had a long career in all kinds of areas in nonprofits, including the American Heart Association. Is also a veteran with the United States Air Force. So thank you for your service to this country. Immediately to the side is PJ Diamond. You know PJ from the last time. PJ was really kind and been very involved in putting all this together with Leadership Austin. She has a background in higher ed, working in higher ed, nonprofit work, And now we're really so glad that you're here with Leadership Austin.
I'm glad to be here and glad to see so many familiar faces.
Yeah. And then he's going to go, but I'm so glad that Chris is here. Chris Dieto is here, and Chris is with Leadership Austin, has also had a long career in all sorts of nonprofits, including the National Hispanic Institute, which we can talk more about as we go through this. But Chris he's got to leave a little early, but I'm just glad you're here. And I'm also glad that people could get parking. Yeah, right, exactly. So I'll just start with this general question. I want to ask a couple of questions, and then we're going to open it up. So I guess the first question is for all of us to think through is, how do you see your career? How did you create a career path? Did you have a career path? Did you have, now I'm going to do this? Or what were your motives, your purpose? Did you have a purpose when you made decisions about, I think this is good, I would like to pursue this? How did you make decisions about your career as leaders and the different fields that you're coming from?
Yeah.
Go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll start. So I always say this. I think that when you end up in the nonprofit space, it's not, oh my gosh, I want to be in the nonprofit space. It kind of just happens, and then you're there and you realize, oh gosh, I want to be a part of a community and serve people. I want to be able to create sustainable change. I want to make an impact. And obviously, being somebody from Austin, I wanted to create my impact and do my, really here, and really just be influential. And I think what started that, truth be told, is I had someone that really brought me to the table. Somebody that said, you know what, you can do this. Why don't you come and join me? Why don't you listen in? Why don't you know what, I know it's probably not what you think, or this is the first time you've done development or been in the nonprofit world, but I'll teach you. And so I truly had a mentor in my first job. He's my best friend till this day, and he's still my mentor, and I call every day if something's happening or hey for advice. But that's really what it was, is he invited me to the table and be a part of conversations, and it really transformed my career.
Maybe a little different. To get to where I'm at now and thinking about my career, I think I've always been internally motivated to change the world. I don't know, I'm still figuring out what that looks like, how I'm going to do that, and what ways I will do that. But intrinsically, I've always felt like I'm gonna be different, and I'm going to do it different. And so I think of all of it, it's really knowing yourself. I have conversations with myself quite often, but checking in with my gut for various decisions, whether that's a job, whether that's a volunteer opportunity, whether that is a mentor asking me to come along, ultimately it is my choice. And so knowing myself, knowing my own values and my guiding principles, knowing how I live that out every day is kind of what guides me. And I'll just say lastly, much like Vanessa shared, I didn't necessarily think I would be in the nonprofit space. My career has been in higher education the majority of the time, and then a bit in the private sector. But going back to caring about my community, caring about the other humans that I see outside of myself, caring about the negative ramifications of our history. Like, history has negatively impacted so many of us, and we're living that out today. So having that awareness today and I guess motivation to do something different is what guides me.
I'll go forward, man.
I'm going to take the whole time. I'm just joking.
I know you're leaving early. You need
Yeah,
to.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm giving you your moment, man.
I was forced into it. I'm joking. I have a long history, a family history of being involved and engaged out in the community. My grandparents were park directors for 25 years in the city of Houston, really leveraging that space to create real change in kids and families out there and out in the community. My grandmother was a staunch advocate for improving outcomes for everybody in Houston. My dad started a nonprofit 46 years ago, focused on Latino youth leadership initiatives, really directing young people to play visible roles in community life. is how do we build on the assets of our community? How do we remain engaged? How do we elevate our communities? How do we create more equity out in our communities? I just happened to grow up into that. I was a young high school kid who didn't care. I went through college, didn't really care, interned, and then it wasn't until I interned that I got to be involved that I really found real interest in it. My dad always had a fundamental belief in young people that they have the capacity to shape communities, and I really resonate with that I think people have the ability and capacity to do great things and transform communities. That gave me space to travel around the country doing community development work. I see what people have to offer, and then in my role in the nonprofit, you don't do it for the glory, you don't do it for the money, but you do it because you really want to make an impact on people and in communities, and that our hope is that our legacy is leaving the community or the world a little bit better. And I think somewhere along the journey here, it's just really kind of aligning what my own personal values are. So whatever that might be for you, and then how do you kind of, marry your world in your direction to really support that. It just so happens to be it was in the nonprofit space for me.
Nice. Good segue to kind of how I got into it. Couple of things. One, we talked about the baseball piece of it. So I grew up small town, similar to Canadian, but and it was pretty challenging childhood. I was adopted. Me and my twin were adopted at around 13, which, if you know anything about the system, that's not as rare because we come in baggage and all that stuff. But that led to it. So then I started, getting serious about sports, because in order to go to school, and when I was adopted, education became serious. So sports was going to pay for it because we couldn't afford it either. And so it was an interesting kind of battle between loving education and needing sports to do it. Well, then fortunately I was okay at sports, so I go to college, or I go to the pros, baseball, way cool and all that, but every year meeting Dominican, Haitian, Australian, man, you go from a town of 1,500 to walking into this thing, and I go, man, I didn't know so many black people play baseball. Well, then they started talking. I was like, oh, hold on, that's not English. And so it was fascinating, just kind of the world piece of that. But then you start seeing people get cut and not having the educational background. So that's why I came back to school to get my degree. And then I started playing football again. So it worked itself out. Well, unique to my degree, I was a part of a group that helped spearhead. UT now has a social work degree with a business minor, and so that's what I got, because of us and Dean White. We're like, you ever realize how disconnected the nonprofit and the business world can be? And so I'll go to McCombs and argue about nonprofit. I go to the nonprofit, but business people need this, and so that was always fun. I don't mind arguing sometimes. And so I think, and why did I do that is to learn a little bit even more about me. Ultimately we talk a lot about discovering who we were, trying to just process. Even as a sports guy, we see the football pass and all that. It'll blow your mind how technical sports can be, between especially football, where every position you have to know it. So then that led me to the corporate world of risk management, because you walk in a building, you're like, all right, cool. I walk in the building, I'm going, all right, this building's a little old because it doesn't have fire extinguishers. And so different things like that. And then no running water. When you said it earlier, I held it together, I go, woo. I can't insure that, but no. And so just all the above. But I think, and the reason I wanted to go last, because it's funny how this works, but I think collectively and synergistically, we love people building. I think I'm in the corporate world, and it's about businesses, and I insure a lot of them. But there's no more important than the people building business, and whatever way that looks. And so I think, even though and I also have a part-time job at the University of Texas. And so if you ask me to describe what that job is, I can't. But it is having, and I'm not always successful, but having a seat at the table to where risk management, culturally, sports, you name it, and there's a lot of moving parts, that at least our previous president and Jim Davis, who I'm in the jacket, you look good, I'm in the jacket because his inauguration's tonight. And so sitting at that table, and even when they don't like it, giving 2 cents is at least slowly but surely they're starting to invite that. So that's the collective aspect of how I got to where we are now.
I'm going to follow that up because what you're saying and a lot of y'all are saying, to me, bringing together things that aren't always the immediate apparent connections are real important in being a leader and helping motivate people, but being risk takers. And I think of civic space as a place for entrepreneurs to really thrive and to be creative and to be innovative and to draw those skills in places that we normally don't associate culturally or societally on how entrepreneurship and creativity play a role in solving community problems. And what you were saying about connecting the business side to the social work nonprofit side is something that this is about. Like that's what we're about. So I'm curious if y'all would talk a little bit about how your entrepreneurial skills play such a significant role in being successful.
Go for it.
You're going to piggyback off what I say?
I'll go next because I'm going to have to leave here in a bit here.
Good.
Well, I can go ahead and start. Oh, sweet. No pressure.
I like hearing too.
Yeah, I appreciate you touching on we're in the work of leadership, right? So we build leadership for this particular region. Creativity, innovation are more modern leadership skills. We've got to rethink how we do things. So we know that certain systems produce certain outcomes. Those have become outdated. So it requires individuals to have a lot of exposure with people, and really, if we're talking about engagement, what that looks like, and being active out in the community, understanding maybe what the problems are, or sometimes the more influential people are not the ones who carry a particular title for a company or an organization. So just going to try to summarize some pieces. There is an entrepreneurial mindset in being okay with taking risks out there. You got to be comfortable in your own skin. If you understand where you're moving, your vision, your purpose, then you don't get knocked off track as easily, because there will be a lot of failure and you'll find success out there. But you got to be okay with taking risks and learning. An area that we really focus on is being curious and really just trying to understand the landscape, relationships. I asked my dad, how have you been able to be as successful in your work for 46 years? And it's relationships. You know, and things that happened, I said, well, did it happen in a year? No, it happens over a lifetime. If you want real long-term change out there, it's got to be relationships. You got to understand people, just finding out things. I'm a twin too. So I immediately connect when you say a twin, because I understand what that's like. My older brother played baseball in the minor leagues for 3 years for the Astros. He was a pitcher. But when you get to know people, you're able to understand more about them, that we can find some common ground. But I think the most important piece is to be risk takers and being comfortable in your own skin, to try and learn. Is maybe rethink this idea of failure, but maybe this is learning. My idea, you test it, it didn't work. What did I learn? What worked? What didn't? What was missing? Who can I involve? And sometimes people have different perspectives and viewpoints and skills that they can complement the work that you're doing, but you got to build those relationships out there. And I think in this space, I think we're moving into a new space where these pieces are going to be very important. That innovation, that creativity, building relationships out there, rethinking new possibilities, and really lean into that. I just want to thank you for allowing me to crash, and I almost came to support PJ, because Dynamite. If you haven't had a chance to meet everybody here, make sure that you leave and introduce yourself. And if you don't know each other here in the room, I encourage you to get to know each other and spend some time with them. So I'll go ahead and pass it on over to whomever is going to speak next.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that. I think a lot of, I come from the nonprofit, mostly on the development side. And I learned very early in my career that a lot of times not people think, oh, especially people from the corporate world, they like to think, oh, you guys just go and raise money and it doesn't matter if you end in the red. No, you know, you're just going to go and get somebody to give you more money. But the truth of the matter is I learned really quickly that me as my department, that I had to run it like my own business. I had to make sure that we were growing year over year, that we weren't in the red. And so how do we get there? What does that look like? How do we become creative in our way to and create sustainability, but also growth? And so for us for me, it was more of, and it just depends on your background and what you're doing. But for me, it's collaborating. There's so many great nonprofits out there that are doing amazing work. Like we all do great work. We want to serve people. We want the best, and we're putting our best foot forward to create that change. But the truth is, their biggest impact is when you partner with somebody else that's already doing the work, so that you're not recreating it. Because then now you're essentially spinning your wheels of how do I do this when if you see somebody else that's already doing it great, hey, like I do this really well. And they do this, like if we come together, can you imagine the impact that we could have as a collective? And I think that is, for me, what I learned over time is, you know, sometimes you got to check your ego at the door and realize, look, I'm in the space of nonprofit to serve people. I put service over self. And I want to be sure that I'm touching people's lives. And I want to, if I can bring folks with me, if I collect and get more folks involved, our impact could be what I was doing was here. And if I bring 2 or more people that are doing just that and something else, and they're already doing it, we could be here. And that to me is one thing that was really, really pivotal in my career that I learned really early on, that really was transformational for me, especially kind of going and working from a small nonprofit to like almost like a startup to a big national nonprofit, and realizing that, you know, we're all doing that. And Chris, you talked about relationships. Relationships are key. And I say this all the time as being like an executive director. And I always say, COVID taught us, man, we could meet people and do things over Zoom. But the truth of the matter is you make relationships by meeting people where they are. You have to be in person. I can meet any of you over email, over Zoom, but when I can sit here and touch you and say, and you can read the passion on my face, that's transformational. Yeah. And then that's how you build relationships. And it's not just for that one ask, it's taking them along this journey of what you're doing. It's making that ask and what we call stewardship, right? Is that we're talking through these relationships, building them to a point where you're no longer just emailing or sending a LinkedIn. Now you can text them like, hey, like, do you know this person? I need a favor. Do you know, can you connect me to this person? And we make mistakes along the way. But you know what? Making mistakes and being vulnerable and owning those is what makes you an even better leader. Yeah. And getting that feedback from somebody that's with you, that is truly how you grow and you change in your career. I'm not perfect. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but you know what? I learn from them, I grow from them, and I ask other people of, hey, like I did this, what's another way I can do that? But yeah, that's kind of how I've kind of grown in my career.
Nice. Hey.
Thanks, Chris.
Nice to meet you, brother.
Nice meeting you.
Oh, my Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Mine's interesting because I'm thinking of it, when I think about that question, it's a little bit different. From a business standpoint, a life standpoint, an advocacy, active, you name it. Because entrepreneurially, and I'm making it real time, right? I've always, thanks to sports and things like that, leadership, by the way, I was talking to a young lady, what y'all do is so important. I mean, we really, it might be the biggest epidemic we have in this country. And so, when I think about the leadership or the entrepreneurial aspect or the nonprofit space, especially being able to juggle both, and even in my world that, you know, ultimately you have to kind of buy this. There's no kind of you do and all that. But there's things I've dealt with in the last few years that blow my mind. I'm like, what? You asked me where I am politically? What does that have to do with me ensuring your company and making sure you're okay? But in an entrepreneurial spirit, being able to play in that gray area or juggle it without losing you is a big deal. Being able to, so it's funny from a leadership standpoint how I flipped a little bit, and through mentorship and different things, I'm like, you grow up at a younger age and like leadership is being liked, you're being followed. And that's not it. Ultimately it's about being trusted and respected. And a lot of people may not like what you have to say or what you stand for, but if they trust and respect you, even in that gray area, it's funny how they tend to, even if they don't like it, even if they're not going to change, even whatever, you can just chip away just a little bit as far as what, especially in the business world, of what they may think, believe, or be following. And so entrepreneurially, it's maneuvering that space. I'm in the insurance industry. My man did a internship. He may or may not have seen a guy that in that office that looked like me, but I know we have 1,500 people in my firm, and I've hired the 3 that look like me. And so how to maneuver that piece of it, it's funny because it's just natural, right? We should be in a world where it's celebrated and it's all good and it doesn't matter. But if we're being real with ourselves in the country we're in and the world we live in, the state we live in, you name it, it's just not the truth. And so, and I say that from a level of also being empathetic that people come from different places too. Blew my mind, a story I was talking to one of our guys, and we're just talking about life and how he got into the industry and all of that entrepreneurially. Because we also, we run our own businesses within this massive firm. He said, man, it's not that I don't believe this or I just don't have any idea. I said, oh yeah. I said, I got a question for you. You ever had a black person at your dinner table? And he goes, no. And so just those, and I'm a golfer too, so a country clubber. I deal with this a lot, by the way. And so I'm okay, and I give grace enough to understand that meeting people where they are is meeting them where they are. The biggest piece that I have to maneuver, though, is not deleting me to meet them where they are, and then collectively we can figure it out.
Interesting.
I think maybe I would just add a couple things as I listened to these folks speak. There are a few things that raised to the top for me. Number one is how important a growth mindset is. Some of you might be familiar with the growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So exactly what Chris was saying in terms of approaching every situation, every person with the concept or the idea of, what can I learn here? What can I learn? It might be something really different than what you were anticipating, but you can probably learn something if you're stepping in with that growth mindset. Number two, just how important curiosity is. Just to be curious, to ask questions, to take a pause for a moment and recognize, wow, this is really different than anything that I've ever been exposed to. How does this make me feel? What am I thinking? What questions are still lingering for me? Lastly, and maybe one of the more important concepts to me, is how we cannot underestimate the power and importance of diversity. We have all of these, where we are in this nation, everything is so politicized, everything's so polarized, and even the word diversity is being attacked. Diversity at its core is different. Diversity of drinks right here for you, folks. And so the fact that just that word is being attacked, I think we can do better as a citizenry, as a community, to say, hey, no, we value diversity because as it pertains to strategic thinking, as it pertains to innovation, as it pertains to creativity, we can't do those things if we all look alike and we all sound alike and we all talk alike. It's going to be all the same. We need folks of different backgrounds, different intelligences, different cultures, different languages to show us what we don't know, because there's a lot of it. So those are just a few things I would add there.
There's a theory, and I teach a class on nonprofit management and interest group advocacy, and it's an ecosystem approach instead of a zero sum. I mean, all of us are competitive. When you play, you want to win. But all the things aren't built on these are the winners, these are the losers. Right. And in an ecosystem, you have to balance all of the the various players in that ecosystem. So if everyone's a predator in the ecosystem, then there's nothing left in that ecosystem. It's a barren ecosystem. So there's a recognition in any ecosystem of how fragile each of the pieces are and how important it is to sustain that for the interest of everyone in that ecosystem. And I think right now we're in a point in our country where there's the mentality that we want to grasp everything and not see the consequences of what that does to the groups that are more vulnerable, to the marginalized groups, to the groups that don't have the apex predator status in the ecosystem. And it's a power language that I think we have to address in our social, political, economic, entertainment, all of those things. That the power language doesn't really allow for us, because if you say, okay, we want to make sure there's all this diversity in our communities and there's the marginalized are protected, there are some in that would try to exploit that and use it to their own advantage. And so to me, the question is, how do we deal with an ecosystem we know is fragile, but also understand there are many in that world that would want to completely undermine every group and have everyone look exactly the same, talk exactly the same, be exactly the same.
If you don't mind, can I talk a little bit?
Yeah.
It'll be my only football piece of it.
You were doing so well.
I know, man. Well, but it's so funny because the parallels in the military, ultimately, it's amazing. Some of the most entertaining or important or fun things we do is all about team. It's all about togetherness. And I promise you, if you're in the military, all of these things that are being talked about in a negative way, you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about survival and how we can work together in football. Most people know the name Tom Brady, whether you like football or not. The guy has 7 rings. He's amazing, right? Yeah, Tom Brady has center, linemen, receivers, running back. None of that works if it all does not work together. Right. And so even though he get all this, he did get the TV deal and all that good stuff, ultimately, he's one of the best because he was one of the best that understood the value of every single aspect. That man, I've seen him walk in, and it could be the person that in so many scenarios seem nameless that's cleaning. No, he knew them. He knew their name. He gave them. So ultimately, that's leadership, right? That's the perspective that celebrate the synergistic diversity of what all of it can be versus no one can do it all. It's just the truth. You can be the smartest, whatever you want to be, and even some of these uber wealthy folks, it's amazing how they act like they did it all, and none of them did. And I've met a lot of their team, and I'm like, oh, so you're the real brands behind it. You may not be worth 70 billion, but you're every bit of why it is. And so that piece of it is it's just something I think about a lot when it comes to what you're talking about and why it should be celebrated and the value of you're only as good as your weakest link perspective. And that's in nonprofit, business, you name it, family, sports. I mean, all of it together is just super important as far as progress, real and authentic and good, positive progress in whatever you may be doing.
Should we open up?
Yeah, I want to open it up.
Let's
Bruno.
go, homies.
I'm hearing a lot about we need to work together. You all didn't get here alone. You all are not gods. You also make mistakes. You're still learning. And right now you're in the middle of this leadership nonprofit space. And I wonder, what are some challenges you see that you wish to transmit to a future generation of leaders, that you wish for a future generation to work on and improve from the job you all have been doing? Thank you.
For ladies.
I love that question.
Yeah.
I'll maybe. What'd you say?
That's just a loaded one too.
It's a load. I was gonna say I'll start.
There's a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I'll start us off, and then maybe you all can continue it. I think, particularly that last piece that you bring up of the younger generation. What do we want to impart on the younger generation? And cliche, it might sound, but like, I hope that we really start utilizing technology to do all the things that we're talking about. So in collaborating, rather than using social media to learn the next TikTok dance. Like, how are we using social media to educate one another? And I know we're seeing some of that now, but then of course the regulations and whether or not it's misinformation or true information, things like that. Yeah, we need some more regulation there. But I think I'd like to see the digital natives that are growing up now to collaborate with those of us that are not digital natives to get the work done, because this world is a lot smaller, our communities are a lot smaller, and for as much bad that we hear about technology, there is a lot of good happening too. So how can we harness that goodness? That's a start.
Yeah.
And I'll talk technology, social media, critical. But a lot of nonprofits, truth be told, are doing and focusing exactly of what you're saying. They're creating these next gen type of focus. So like all the major nonprofits, so American Cancer Society, Heart Association, everybody is trying to figure out how do we get that next generation to get involved. And the truth of the matter is, you have a lot of it comes from a connection, a personal connection. And yes, it could be, you know, social media is important to continue the engagement because it's so critical, because that's how we get all our information, because it's right here at our hands at every 24/7, right? I mean, I have a 16-year-old. Getting her off her phone is like, you would think I have told her, like, took away her life. And I'm like, it's going to be okay, I promise. You're going to survive. But the truth is, we truly need to connect and make sure that we're telling the story, that we're doing this, that we're saying, hey, like, this is how you can be involved. This is what I'm doing in my community. This is what's going on. And finding those individuals that you connect with, or hey, like, you've been impacted by X, Y, or Z, whether it's people with disabilities, whether it's heart, whether it's cancer, whether it's anything like that. I think that that's the most important. That's how you draw people in, truthfully, is that you have a why. What is the why? Yeah. But we have to continue to be out in the community and engaging folks, not just through major events, not just through galas or having people pay. It's by doing things like this, of saying, hey, it's not always, you don't always have to pay. Yeah. Just tell the story of like, hey, this is what we're doing. Like, this is how we're engaging the community. Did you know that we're doing this much giving and research for cancer at UT Austin? And you're like, man, what does that look like? Well, did you know that for Heart Association, that heart disease is the leading cause of women and minorities? And not only that, so is breast cancer. And so it's like, well, how do we do that? What is that preventative care? Maybe your family, your sister, your grandparents, somebody that you've been closely connected to has been impacted. Yeah. And that's how you draw in, is people's why. But we have to keep continuing to tell that story over and over again until it resonates with something that you've been personally impacted.
Nice. And I'll finish it off with, especially because the word that popped out was the young people in y'all's involvement. It's pretty wild, but just don't get discouraged. Ultimately, we need y'all in every way, form, or fashion, especially, but not necessarily, certainly in the nonprofit space, you name it, leadership on every level. But leadership means a lot of things. We need you in your families, right? You know, ultimately, it's so many stories you hear. I've thought this way, and then my granddaughter called me out, or my grandson called me out, and I'm like, oh, I never felt that way, because the old days are real. We don't necessarily agree with them, but they were very different. You know, I had a conversation just this week with I'm a country bumpkin, so I call him my old man. I was like, I talked to my old man, and he was like, yeah, I grew up during this time because of certain things happened politically. We talked about voting. And I was like, well, the Civil Rights Act, you were born this, did you? And we had a long conversation, and I was mind blown to just think about, we've had it before, but the things he lived through. Literally. And so it's like, whoa, well, I know a lot of people your age that may think differently, but their young kids didn't grow up like that, and they 100% think differently. And last but not least, being comfortable being a little bit uncomfortable. Because from that standpoint, you may be talking to a family member or a friend or whatever, and it may not always be fun, but it's amazing. I wasn't as comfortable at a younger age doing that, But the times I did it and you planted the seed, it may not happen in a week or a month or a year, but that perspective at some point, it's amazing when sadly it does take a lot of, oh, something personally happened to me. Now I've changed my perspective. I'm like, oh, you could have before. But that it still matters that impact you can make and still showing up is insanely important. So one of our difficulties is one, like-minded folks showing up because the other folks seem to be a lot louder at times, especially via social media, but continuing to show up, learn, evolve, we're still growing. You see it every single day. We're learning stuff every day and we love it. And it's great. And so just kind of that perspective.
I'm going to give you a personal story just to kind of bring it back of like, we can talk about all this high level, but so in 2018, I was in this role and we had just merged with this parent organization and we were all on this, we were using Zoom before Zoom was even like a thing, before COVID. And we're sitting around this table on Zoom, like phone, our cameras weren't on, and they were complaining about losing funding. And one of the guys out of the organization was, well, who cares about them? They're minorities, they're probably all women, they're single, they're utilizing our resource, they're taking advantage of us. And I'm sitting on this call and I'm just listening and I'm like, wow, he's describing me. I'm a single mom, I'm a first gen, I'm Hispanic. He didn't even realize, and in that moment, he could have stopped me in my tracks and I could have been discouraged. Now, did I hang up the phone and start crying? Absolutely. And then I immediately called my boss and I'm like, do you understand what just happened? Like he was describing me. And of course he was equally upset because as I said, my boss at the time had brought me to the table of saying, hey, use your voice. You have a voice, use it. Dig deep because what you have to say is important. But in that moment, I could have shut down. And that was a long time ago. 2018, I would have never moved on to some of these roles. I could have been like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed, like, I'm out. But I didn't. What I did was, no, I'm going to prove you wrong. And when I step into that boardroom and that you realize who I am and that I'm a Hispanic woman, and I'm going to tell my story when somebody asks, and you're going to realize, oh man, I didn't even realize what I said, and show them that I belong and that I'm going to prove them wrong. And that to me is how you continue, because you're going to be, as you said, discouraged all the time. People are going to want to chop you down all the time. But it's not because you're not good, it's because they're intimidated by you and they fear what you have to say. And so continue to lean on that, lean into that voice, whether it's through social media, whether it's through things like this. Always talk, be proud, stand tall, because you should. We all should. Does it matter what color, what background? Nothing. Be proud of who you are and have those values that they mentioned and your characteristics that are important to you, and lean into that.
Mind if I say one more?
Yeah.
Something on the other side of that, because I deal with this a lot, been on boards. And this is one of the hardest things, to be honest with you, because we also have, thanks to these super fast phones that we can get any information in 2 seconds, and we like things fast now. In talking to my pops, we talked a lot about the progress, right? And we talk a lot about worldly issues, and not progress, but the process. And it's amazing to talk to him, military man as well, and kind of steer it a certain way. I was on a nonprofit, and of course our state has this stuff, and we got that nonprofit got a lot of state funding. And they're like, we cannot take another dime from the state. And I go, oh, gosh, I'm really conflicted. I get what you're saying. This place can't survive if you don't take, and so that's the uncomfortable part, and I was on the side of saying, listen, we're not gonna get all of everything we want. If we go back to civil rights leaders, some are like, we want it all. Some are like, we'll take breadcrumbs. I think both are right in their mindset, or at least how they want to get it accomplished. But being the sports, it's about production. Being in my role now, it's about production. How do we move the needle? And I think there's going to be some tough times at that point where you're going to be conflicted because you're like, do I really want to keep dealing with the city for this or the state for this? But you have to, because if there are other human beings affected by you not doing it, that's a sword, unfortunately, you sometimes have to fall on. It does not feel good. I've been called out and saying, what are you doing? I'm like, but I've seen that family that if we quit taking that funding, their kid can't get this. They don't have transportation. They don't have this. They are hiding from domestic violence. And so that's just, and it's really just being transparent about some of the things you're going to have to deal with in this, you know, kind of in this phase or in this perspective of leadership when you're dealing with real world issues. And so you're going to be called all kinds of stuff. It happens. But going back to being trusted and respected, in the end, you do it for the right reasons, for the right people, and not necessarily selfishly. I think that's your piece, right? You know, your piece is, I know you, we don't like, you know, 2/3 of the room are annoyed, or even 1/3 of the room is mad because we want it all this way or that way. And a lot of passionate people in the nonprofit space, man. They want it all, and I appreciate it. And for me, it's so funny. I've had this conversation with a lot of folks. Advocation versus activism. And it's an interesting space to live in because I find myself in the gray area a lot, right? I'm always advocating, and that's not great. I'm doing that every day, all day, and twice on Sunday. But if you work in higher ed or you have, you know, a certain level of restraints in other scenarios, you just, that is a time you have to pull back for the greater good because of your own representation. And so it's a lot of, it's not easy, but it's worth it. And ultimately what y'all young folks will realize in life, when adulting start happening, 99% of what you do won't be easy, but those that are worth it, you'll keep doing it.
I have just a final word that I would add to what you all just shared. Going back to the biggest challenge, and from a leadership perspective, Leadership Austin, our biggest challenge right now is getting everyone in the room of all backgrounds and all sides of the spectrum. So thinking politically, for whatever reason, it's seeming that leadership is maybe one side and the other side isn't showing up as much. And so what I would say to the younger population is like, no matter what you're standing for, if you're passionate and you're excited, like, speak your truth. We need all sides of the spectrum to get things done. We can't just have the Democrats, or we can't just have the Republicans. It needs to be all of us to change, to move the needle. And so I bring that back as like Leadership Austin. That's something we talk about almost every day in terms of how we're getting everybody from each side of the spectrum to the table so that we can talk, that we can dialogue. So dialoguing, using critical thought, we need those things, but if anything, we need you to come to the table. So be brave and come to the table.
Leadership is, regardless of where you stand, understanding you need everyone is a massive part of leadership. Forget where you stand, where your background, whatever it may be, you need everyone at the table. And you need to have a conversation, constructive, respectful, if you want to actually get somewhere.
No, and I think that when you have those, somebody might get offended. Somebody will get
2025, somebody will get offended.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to get offended. Somebody's going to get upset. But you have to be able to have courage, speak your mind, and be okay with somebody disagreeing with you. You have to be okay with somebody disagreeing with you, because not everybody thinks the same, unfortunately.
I think we have one student question.
So here's here. It's 1 o'clock. So I want to probably stop. I hate to say that because I want to, but we're gonna keep. Y'all can hang out for a few minutes. But and then we had one question.
I like that. That's good.
But what I'll say is, there's you can listen to music in a small club where it's a jazz club, and you can hang out and listen to that small intimate place, or you can go to a big arena and hear the big like concert. I'm going to Paul McCartney on Saturday in San Antonio. But I'm also really into going to the Elephant Room.
Absolutely.
Or C-Boy.
Yes.
And like small clubs to me are where you hear the most. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is like a small jazz club is how I'm feeling right now and how we can get together and have the conversation. So, you know, how you listen to music's important and how you have conversations. You don't have to your message doesn't have to be the big, you can turn it into a marketing scheme, or you can really have a good message. Whatever your message is, let your audience be true to the message, be true to your story. Tell your story, be true to it. And whatever group shows up, that's the group. And like, enjoy it. Like, be in the moment with that group. So, you know, I appreciate you guys coming. And thanks very much for coming. I'd like to get we got some shirts, some Kozmetsky t-shirts. So for y'all, I would like to get a picture. Can I get a picture with everybody real quick?
Great. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Together.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you guys mind we get a photo with
not at
all
all.
of them?
No,
Thank
not
you
at
guys.
all.
Yeah, that's great, Quan.
Thank you, brother.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
That was awesome.
thank
Hop on in.
you.
Thank